Done. The World Baseball Classic just
Would I
completed
shock you
up.
if I said I didn't watch a ton of it because of COVID?
It would shock me a little bit as much as you are a baseball guy. You know, I'm not the biggest baseball guy in the world. You know, I have major criticisms of one commissioner, Rob Manfred, and everything going on in this baseball universe. But I'm going to ask you a few baseball questions, and obviously, we're going to get to our Cleveland Guardians. Very excited about them this season. We're going to talk a lot about the rule changes that I'm a traditionalist and I'm not
And
for.
so am I, but we'll have
We're gonna
some
get
definite interesting
into that
discussion here.
conversation, but just quickly, the World Baseball Classic, this year was a success. I think it got a lot of people talking. I think Otani versus Mike Trout, the last at bat was great. I just for me, I don't understand it. Maybe it's scheduling, and maybe you as a baseball fan can help me out because I'm going to be honest, I don't have much knowledge of it. Why does it take place during the middle of spring training?
Well,
Why?
honestly, here's the biggest thing about it. If you have it at the end of the season, a bunch, at least, 20 plus teams are done in October, and they're all already through the grind of an 162 game season, and then some of them postseason. So it makes no sense, especially when you're trying to get healthy and have a little bit of a rest period to put it at the end of the year. So when you're ramping up, and albeit it's not, ideal either, you're not going to take time off in the middle of the season just to have it unless you condense the pool down, which you don't want to do that because it has been a successful event, every 3 years, with the exception of 2020 being when COVID hit. But I mean, you're having it held at the beginning of the season when everyone should be theoretically healthy, starting to ramp up, getting with their teams, and then you're able to go to your national teams. It makes more sense to have it at the beginning during spring training. And for some players, who may not get the same amount of reps as others, maybe on, even if they're, a starter or, I'm just saying pitcher, position player, even utility role, etc. They'll get more reps on that teams for some people. Others, are stacked to the brim with talent, but it still makes more sense to hold it during spring training than to hold it at the end of the year
Well,
when everyone's injured and you're literally just coming
no,
off of the
I
most
agree. I
grind.
was thinking, like, why don't they have it in like late January, early February? Why are
Because
you
that's that
taking
you're
away
because
spring
that's still,
training?
free agency. You're still having to deal with, the ramp back up period. You need to ramp back up. Like you have to have some of that downtime in January. That's still too early
Okay.
from the end of the season because with the expanded postseason now, like, unless you have a 4 game sweep, you're more than likely going to end like in the first days of November for
Yeah,
the postseason.
that's
So you have
true.
to take that into account. And basically 2 months, and then you have to ramp up, and that's probably more dangerous for injury from my perspective. I'm not
Yeah,
a doctor
no,
here, but
that's
I'm just saying, like, from an injury perspective, like that's probably not safe.
no, that's a good point. Okay, here we go. These rule changes. Um, let's start with the biggest one, the pitch clock. Um, I am
You're
1%
mixed.
warming up to the idea if it actually does what it is intended to do. However, my biggest issue with this pitch clock, and I was talking to my good buddy Joey Schneider, obviously former co-host at All Things Cavaliers. He was the B reporter last year for the Lake County Captains. And what he was telling me is obviously the minors, they have the pitch clock. He was telling me that the pitch clock was for just the pitcher, though, and it wasn't for the batter. And so my biggest issue with this whole clock thing is you're going to get a situation which what we saw the first day of spring training, I believe it was Boston. I can't remember the other team. Might have been Miami or somebody. Maybe it was San Diego. And I don't
Not San
remember.
Diego. They're not in the same league for spring
I
training.
I don't remember the hitter either, but I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, where it was a 3-2 count, bases loaded, 2-out situation.
Mhm.
And the batter did not make it in the box in time, and they
I
called
mean,
him
that was
out.
the first day. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that
I mean,
I
they're
mean,
trying to speed up the game, and the batters have to have, and they, have clarified some rule tweaks and whatnot. But you want to know the interesting thing? I kind of timed up how long, and it's not an exact science. I did it basically as soon as the pitcher was going to throw the first pitch. The first
okay,
inning of a recent Texas Rangers and Cleveland Guardians game. The
So
Rangers
this was
obviously
spring
had more men
training,
on.
right? This
Yeah, so
year.
this was about a couple days ago. It was
Okay.
reported. The first 6 batters of and the Plesac's pitch counts went deep. It took 9 minutes and about 40 seconds or so to complete the Rangers half the first inning. They went up 2-0, had 6 men go to the plate. They worked the count a little bit. And then for the Guardians, they had actually 5 men up at the plate, 5 or 6. But the Guardians, they had three guys up, and it only took just under 3 minutes
Interesting.
to do it. I mean, the pacing was decent. It was the first time I'd really had a chance to sit down and even watch an inning with the pitch clock and the new rules in place. And it didn't bother me a ton, and I'd warmed up to the idea when I'd read an Athletic article previously that when they advertised it basically as, Burley versus Cliff Lee, like matchup, and it's like, you sold me. Like that's amazing. Just like to see that, because those two pitchers worked pretty quickly versus like, and I've seen examples on, Twitter, one or two, like especially during the beginning, from like just throwing even one pitch in the World Series, constantly stepping off, throwing over, timeout, all that, to them getting one whole inning through with the pitch clock. I mean, there are going to be games where I feel like, man, this just doesn't feel right. But overall, I think it's working well. I mean, it's the pace of play, and I'm a traditionalist too. Do not get me wrong on that, but it's not as bad as I think people are making it out to be. And I think there will be a little bit of time added over the years. Not too much,
Yeah.
but just like,
Well,
especially
I
for the hitters, I think just one timeout per batter per game, that's stupid. I'm someone who, when I was in the box, I needed at least, depending on how long the count ran, I need 2 to 3 times to step out real quick just to have my head reset, because, depending on the count, that's how my strategy changed, how I would approach the at bat. And that's, a big part of it. I think it's going to more so affect the hitters than is going to the pitchers, because I think it's going to be all
interesting.
right with the pitchers. It's going to be hitters who are going to be more affected, I think, for all
My
this.
biggest concern with the whole pitch clock is I hope they're lenient when it comes to, late game or playoff game,
That's the
big
thing with the
time
playoffs. I think
situations.
I think they should try to they should significantly lengthen the pitch clock for the playoffs.
Because I
I
mean,
know,
the whole point of baseball, the greatest drama of baseball, and you know this as a former baseball player, is obviously the batter adjusting his glove or the pitcher
yeah, but
just
also some of it
staring
is
down.
unnecessary. Some of it
Some of it
has been.
wasn't necessary, and some of
And
it
that's
takes
what I've
way
liked
too
about the pitch
long.
clock so far. It's just like, because Plesac would have thrown over 10 times, and that first inning would have been like 15 minutes. They probably shaved off 6 minutes of time in that
Yeah,
first inning. As I said, I literally timed it. And that was just the top of the first inning. Like, imagine if Plesac and the batters just kept stepping out or stepping off. We would have had a 15-minute top of the first inning, man.
you cannot get me though. You can possibly hook me on the pitch clock. You're never gonna hook me on banning the shift. I'm sorry.
I have
I
been
know
someone who's just
I
like the
I
extreme
know
shifts of
you're a little
extreme
bit
shifts,
for
just
it,
not.
but
I am fine with some shifting, but just the way that shifts went in recent years, that is not what you need to do.
I'm sorry.
Like, you don't
It's
need to go, like, you
strategy.
don't need to have four guys on one side of the field, basically, but third baseman basically playing like a very close to second base shortstop. I
Hey,
mean,
if all a lefty
and I
does
get
is
it.
pull to the first base side, why shouldn't I be allowed to play that defense?
I mean, you should, if you're going to have a guy slide over to the right side from shortstop, shortstop is shortstop for a reason. It's not called second base. Have the guy on the other side of the bag, as they have been telling you, the players do not cross before the pitch is thrown. Basically, and I may be getting some of that wrong, but basically, do not be on the other side of the bag and playing basically a second base until the pitch has been thrown and the ball has been hit, because you don't need to have two second basemen and a first baseman on one side. Like, just, it's more so the shift. I like it, but the extremities that teams went to with it was just, that wasn't meant to be how it was done.
These
Just
bigger
yeah.
Sean, what is it about the bigger bases? What is I'm so confused. What does a bigger base do? Is it from my understanding, it's supposed to create more stolen bases? From my understanding as well, it's not working, it's causing less stolen bases. I don't know. What is the point of it?
I mean, stolen bases, yes, but I think also I don't remember for certain. Just maybe a little bit of a safety factor too, just kind of expanding it a little bit because if you're not seeing play like certain players, like star players, I'm trying to remember if it was Trout, Turner, or Harper, and like years past had gone sliding in and like had thumb injuries and whatnot. So I think that might have been part of it that played into it. But I I mean, some of it is safety from what I can remember. I don't really see too much of a difference yet. I need to probably be in person to really, really tell how much of a difference there is with the bases. But I mean, I'm fine with it. It's not anything that's a make or break deal with me.
Okay, so with that in mind, obviously our Cleveland Guardians are kicking off the season here on March 30th, a week from today at the time of this recording, 2 days from the time you will hear this podcast. They will be in Seattle. I don't think any of the rule changes are going to majorly affect the Guardians because we didn't shift
It'll
as much
benefit them.
last year. Yeah,
It'll
it will
benefit them.
benefit
The
them
speed, the
for sure.
contact. I mean, especially, the guys like we just always seem to have left-handed hitters on
Yeah.
surplus. I mean,
Um
the Guardians are the team that, and I could probably go on for a litany of things. The Guardians are the team that's going to be, most, benefited probably, or one of the most, teams that are going to see one of the most benefits from this. But go on, continue.
So I really like this team this year. I love the addition of Josh Bell. I think if you can platoon him and Josh Naylor a little bit first base DH, that will work. I heard, I haven't been following spring training as much as I usually do. I've heard Oscar Gonzalez has had some struggles. I heard he may not even potentially be up in Cleveland on opening day. He could be a Columbus candidate, which surprised me a little bit. But overall, Sean, I almost called you Josh. I apologize for that. Overall, Sean, you have guys like Quan. You have, as I mentioned, Naylor, Andres Jimenez, Amid Rosario, Jose Ramirez. This team is really set. They're mostly the same. Obviously, a new catcher after Hedges departs, but this team for the most part is really good. They're really young, and I don't expect anybody else to significantly challenge them to be the AL Central champions. My concern is, can you beat Houston? Can you beat the Yankees? And I'm not so sure.
I mean, Houston lost Altuve for 2 months. Altuve's done for 2 months. You're not seeing him until May or June. So Houston, I don't even want to say for sure that they're going to make the playoffs because he's their heartbeat. That's going to be my hottest take probably the day.
That's a hot
I don't
take.
know if they will make the playoffs if Altuve is out. He is going to be out for 8 weeks
I mean,
essentially.
Seattle's their biggest challenge. Seattle's going to be good
Seattle,
again.
Texas could be good if the offseason signings finally work and Josh Jung proves to be their third baseman in the future. But uh, I mean, I'm hoping Gonzalez works out because you see the power, you see the
Yep.
ability to do it. My worry is I'm hoping he doesn't turn out to do what Oscar Mercado did, basically. I think Mercado essentially got a little too cozy with being a big leaguer, and that kind of spelled the doom for him after a solid rookie campaign.
Well, we've seen guys in the past. Jose Ramirez, a great example, who struggled the first time he was up in the majors. They sent him back down, and then he came back up, and he became this perennial superstar. But you combine the lineup, which I think is as deep as it's been to start the year. And don't forget, everybody panics about your opening day lineup in baseball. It changes. The example I always use is Marlon Byrd and Juan Uribe were on the opening day team in 2016. They were nowhere near the team by the time the team reached
And don't
October.
forget how cold Francona's teams usually start. I
Yes.
mean,
And they're
it would,
usually under 500. Even last year's team was like nibbling around 500, I believe, in
and then
mid
they pick
June.
it up. So, like, if there's a team that actually starts hot and ends hot, I mean, I'll be surprised because that'll be the team that'll be like, yep, they can win it all. They almost be. I think if there hadn't been that rain out last year, I think the Guardians might have
I
beaten the
agree.
Yankees.
I think that
I don't know
I
if they would
think
have
they
been
might have beat the
Houston.
Yankees.
I don't know if they would have been Houston, but they would have beat the Yankees. They got to throw
I
Cortez one more time.
I completely concur, and I really like the rotation. I know there's a little bit of concern about Plesac and Savali being your fourth and fifth guys.
I
I'm
think
not as
Savali's going to be
concerned.
fine.
I think Savali's gonna be fine. And listen, a lot of people don't like Plesac. They think he's a clown and whatnot, and he hasn't been as good. Like I think Plesac still has legit potential. I don't know if he has the potential to be, a number two or a number three guy in the
He
rotation,
won't
but
be an ace, but I think number 3 is accurate.
yeah, I mean, I think Plesac, like I kept saying when everybody last year at the trade deadline kept saying trade him and trade Ahmed Rosario, I didn't want to trade either one of those guys. In a mid
This might be the
obvious,
time to go back to that phone call when I was so angry and
yes,
calling you, and I'm
I
like,
remember that. Now
just
you were so
make a
angry that they
move. I
didn't
was
make
just
a
like,
move,
just
and I said
make
they're
a
going to
move.
be
Just
fine. They're going to win the division. They're going to win
and they
90
were.
games.
They
They ended up
were.
winning
I
92.
was just frustrated because they had so many good prospects and they had so much of a roster crunch. I mean, you saw a bunch of players depart this organization in the winter.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
there
here's the
that's why I
thing.
was saying,
They
like,
have
yeah,
so many infielders, which is the
yeah.
problem with Amid Rosario and even Andreas Jimenez, who's
And
great.
that's
If
what makes me wonder is a lot of these teams, especially now with the same evaluations, do they see the Guardians infielders as not as valuable?
good point.
Because you've seen guys, certainly struggle, but there's been guys who've had injuries and whatnot. Even Nolan Jones was not viewed for the last couple of years as a can't miss compared to what public perception was. I mean, you saw that Jones got optioned down to
Yeah.
AAA. He's not
So
making their roster. I mean,
Jones,
he's not
Tyler
a.
Friedman as well, I believe, correct?
I mean, Tyler Freeman's still in Cleveland if we're getting the right one down. But yeah, I think he got optioned down as well. But it, I think Rosario is going to be gone after this year. Like regardless, he's a good player. He's not going to be a guy who gets you over the top. Like
That
at the
and
end
I
of the
think
day,
he's the casualty of them having so many shortstops.
and
Like
also
they
just the fact he was a former top 10 prospect, top 20 prospect with the Mets, and he had a big star on him, and there's always going to be these bigger expectations for him, but he'll be a guy who will be in the Hall of Very Good, and he'll bounce around from team to team, not on the same level as like an Ian Kinsler, but maybe a rung or two below that.
So if there's a weak spot on this team, because I do think for a long time, obviously the outfield was a weak spot. It is not presumably anymore. I know a lot of people are still concerned about the catching position, but listen, nobody outside of Philadelphia's catcher Realmuto does barely hits above 200 anymore. Um, I don't see a lot of weakness. I think the bullpen is still strong. They didn't really lose a ton of people, if I'm recalling. I think this team again is really solid. They're mostly the same team. They're going to make additions throughout the season with their AAA call-ups and stuff like that. Like I think injuries, they're built to sustain a wash or two in their rotation. They're gonna lose a guy more than likely in the bullpen, and you're gonna lose an outfielder or an infielder. But this team has depth, and I don't see a lot of real holes in the lineup or pitching staff.
And that's where I think the pitching staff, I'm worried if you lose 3 of these guys, any 3 of Quantrill, Bieber, Savale, and McKenzie, any 3 for at the same time, basically, that's going to spell trouble. Even if you can bring up some kids from the pitching factory, that's where I'm a little bit worried. We saw what happened 2 years ago. I mean, they were playing with fire then,
That was
but the
incredible. They lost all five. Just to set the scene. I'm trying to cut you off,
yeah,
but just to set the scene for maybe those that don't follow the Guardians too much. I believe that was that the last season that they were the Indians, I believe.
yes, correct.
Um, they lost all five of their starting rotation pieces before the All-Star break to injury. It
I
was
think
the most.
McKenzie was the only one with not injury, but I can't remember.
But
He might have been an option.
I think he went down, right? He went down to
Yeah,
AAA at that
something
time
like
because he was
that. Yeah.
struggling. So everybody from opening day that was in their rotation was gone before the All-Star break. It was absolutely incredible. It was something I've never ever thought I'd see in my life.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of holes on this roster, but I feel like some of the kids, even if they are ready, I don't think you can have them for those extended looks like you had to have with like Eli Morgan or XYZ guy. I mean, even the former Logan Allen versus the one that we have right now in the minors. I mean, the rotation is always going to be a concern because I I would not rule out like if they see McKenzie step up into an ace role, if they see Savali rebound and turn back into the ace I think he can be, and you have Quantrill continue to be your number two, kind of like Carrasco was with like him and Kluber. I mean, as much as I don't want to see this, I could see if they think
Greg
they're one
Bieber.
big bat away and they think Gavin Williams is Revy, that Bieber could be trade bait at the deadline, and it would be a hard pill to swallow. I don't know if they would do it, but I could see a avenue where that happens under
I
the
don't
right
know if you
scenario.
can do that in the middle of the season for locker room morale. I think you could do it in the off season. I just for locker room morale, Bieber is such a leader in that clubhouse for
And
not
that's
only
why I'm
the
hoping they can
staff.
extend him. I know my proposal is out there 4 years, 120, give him a decent AAV, and he still hits free agency before he hits his mid 30s.
Yeah, I am
But
concerned with
it's
Bieber
rough.
though. I
He's
do.
he's Verlander. He's Verlander. He's not
He,
gonna light up the radar gun, but he just gets
no,
stronger as he goes.
I have Kluber like concerns with him in that arm. If he's gonna last the next 5, 10 years, because we've seen he is prone
Well,
to
he's
getting
2 years away
injured.
from free agency. That's why I said four.
Yeah,
Four
I like
years.
that.
Get him for these two. Lock him up for these 2 seasons. Pay
And
him a
then
little bit
two
of money
years
up
after
front, and
that.
then two after that. And look, it rewards the player, and it sends a message to the rest of the locker room: Hey, you guys perform, we will reward. And you see what happened with Ramirez last year. I mean, look, and my proposal is kind of crazy for a smaller market team like Cleveland. But you look at San Diego and see what they do. Cleveland can do the same thing.
San
And I know San
Diego's
Diego no longer has the Chargers or anything like that. But look, 4 years, 120. It would be a lot to swallow, but it's reasonable and it's still shorter than some of these other pitcher contracts. You pay ace level production for a player that's still in his prime, and then he'd be right near the end of his prime at the end of that contract, and he'd still get a chance at the apple of free agency with a big payday already, and you could probably guarantee he's going to have his jersey number retired here if he were to sign that contract today.
you like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.